What if I told you that the greatest civilization in history disappeared in a single night? And nobody knows where it is. Atlantis, a city so advanced it defied the gods themselves. So beautiful it seemed impossible. And so proud it was erased from the face of the earth as if it had never existed. Today, you're going to hear the entire story, from its divine birth to its tragic fall. And as I guide you through this journey, you'll relax deeply and drift into the most peaceful dreams you've ever had. But before that happens, before sleep takes you to the depth of Atlantis, do one thing for me. Leave a like on this video and comment anything. It can be just an emoji, because in a few minutes, you'll be sleeping so deeply you won't be able to hit that like now. Comment Atlantis for the algorithm. And then just relax, get comfortable. Close your eyes when you're ready. And let me tell you the story of the city that should never have been forgotten. Let's begin at the beginning. Before men, before civilization, when only the gods walked upon the earth. There's a city beneath the waves that never should have fallen. A place so advanced, so perfect, that even today, we're still searching for it. This is the story of Atlantis. Not the cartoon version. Not the theme park ride. The real myth. The one that's haunted humanity for over 2,000 years. And tonight, you're going to hear all of it. Every detail. Every secret. Every moment that led to its destruction. So close your eyes. Get comfortable. Because we're going back to a time before recorded history. To an island that existed beyond the Pillars of Hercules. It begins with Plato. Athens 360 BC. An old philosopher sits in his academy, surrounded by students. He's writing, always writing, and in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he mentions something strange, a story passed down through generations, a story his ancestors sold and heard in Egypt, from priests who claimed their records went back 9,000 years. They told him about an island that ruled the ancient world, Atlantis. But here's what most people miss. Plato didn't present this as fiction. He claimed it was real history, a cautionary tale about what happens when a great civilization loses its way. And the story he tells is extraordinary. Picture this, an island larger than Libya and Asia combined. That's what Plato says. A massive landmass in the Atlantic Ocean, beyond the straits we now call Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules, the edge of the known world. And on this island, a city unlike anything humanity had ever seen. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because every great civilization has an origin story. And Atlantis began with the gods. Poseidon, god of the sea, was traveling the world, dividing up lands among the mortals, and he came across this island, beautiful, untouched, perfect. In the center of the island, there was a mountain, not massive, not imposing, just a gentle rise in the landscape, green, fertile, isolated. And on that mountain lived a mortal woman named Cleito. She was alone. Her parents had died. No siblings, no family, just her and the mountain and the sky. Can you imagine that solitude? Waking every morning to silence, the wind through the grass, the distant sound of the sea, nothing else. She tended a small garden, kept a few animals, survived, but surviving isn't living. And Cleito was waiting for something, though she didn't know what. Then Poseidon arrived. Gods don't appear gradually. One moment the world is normal. The next, everything changes. He saw her working in her garden, hair tied back, hands in the soil, mortal, fragile, beautiful, and something in him stirred. Gods don't love the way mortals do. Their affections are storms, absolute, consuming. Poseidon decided in an instant she would be his. Now, gods don't really ask permission. They take what they want. So Poseidon began to reshape the world around her. The earth trembled. Water rose from underground springs. Cleito watched, terrified, as her mountain became an island. A ring of water appeared around her, then land, then water again. 3 rings of water, 2 rings of land. Each one higher than the last. A natural fortress, isolating her, protecting her, claiming her. She couldn't leave if she wanted to. But did she want to? We don't know. Plato doesn't tell us. He doesn't record her voice, her choice, her feelings. She's just there, a mortal woman caught in the attention of a god. But let's imagine, maybe at first she was afraid, the earth breaking apart, water rushing in. Everything she knew changed, but then Poseidon spoke to her. And when a god speaks, it's not like mortal conversation. It's waves crashing, whales singing, the deep current pulling. He told her she would never be alone again, that he chose her, that together they would create something eternal. And maybe in that moment, she chose him back. Or maybe she had no choice. The line blurs when gods are involved. 5 sets of twins, 10 sons. Can you imagine her? Cleito, mortal woman, giving birth to demigods. Children who were half divine, who grew faster, stronger, different, whose eyes reflected the sea, whose voices carried like waves. She raised them on that mountain, teaching them mortal things, how to plant, how to build, how to be gentle, while Poseidon taught them divine things, power, command, dominion. The eldest was named Atlas, strong, responsible, born to lead. Even as a child, the others looked to him. When they fought, he settled disputes. When they played, he organized games. He had his father's presence, his mother's wisdom, the perfect combination. And when Poseidon finally decided to leave, to return to his duties beneath the waves, he divided the island among his 10 sons. But Atlas received the center, the rings, the mountain, the place where it all began. He became the first king, and the island was named after him, Atlantis. Now, imagine being Atlas. You're the son of a god, blessed with strength beyond mortals. An entire island to rule, brothers who respect you, everything you could want, but also the weight, the responsibility. Your father is gone, returned to the sea. Your mother is aging, mortal. She won't live forever like you will. And you have to build something, not just for yourself, but for your brothers, your children, the generations to come. Atlas began to build, not immediately. Not rashly. First, he gathered his brothers, all 10 of them on the central mountain, where their mother still lived, and he proposed something, a covenant, 10 kingdoms, 1 island. Each brother would rule his portion, but they would remain united, 1 people, 1 purpose, and at the center, the capital, the city of Atlas, Atlantis. They started with the rings. The natural fortification their father had created, 3 rings of water, 2 rings of land. Atlas saw the potential immediately. The outer ring of land would be the first district, agriculture, workshops, housing for workers. The second ring of water would bring in ships, a harbor, protected, perfect. The inner ring of land would house the wealthy, merchants, nobles, officers. The innermost ring of water would be sacred, only official vessels allowed. And the central island would be for the palace, the temples, the heart of everything. But first, they needed to connect them. can't have a city if people can't move between the rings. So they built bridges, not small wooden structures. Massive stone bridges wide enough for wagons to pass each other. Arched, elegant, strong. They carved tunnels through the rings of land, large enough for ships to pass through. A ship could sail from the open ocean, through the outer ring, through the tunnel in the first land ring, into the second water ring, through another tunnel, into the innermost harbor, all protected, all controlled. It took years, decades actually, but Atlas was immortal. He had time, and his brothers helped, each contributing resources from their kingdoms. Gaderos, the second-born, sent timber from his forests. Amphier sent stone from his quarries. Ivaemon sent workers skilled in metallurgy. Nesia sent engineers who understood water flow. Autochthon sent artists and sculptors. Elisippus sent grain to feed the workers. Mestor sent gold from his mines. Azza sent ships to transport everything. Diaprepe sent soldiers to keep order. 10 brothers, one vision. This was Atlantis in its infancy, pure, united, working towards something greater than any one of them. And slowly the city rose. The outer ring filled with buildings, workshops where metalworkers forged tools, potters shaped clay, weavers worked looms, the sound of hammers, voices, life. The inner ring became residential. Houses of white stone with red tile roofs, gardens between them, fountains, trees, not cramped, not rushed, everything planned, everything beautiful. On the central island, they built the palace, Atlas's residence, but not a fortress, not a castle designed to intimidate, more like a large home, multiple buildings around courtyards, gardens where Clydo could walk, fountains that reminded them of the sea, rooms open to the breeze. This was meant to be lived in, not just to impress. Though it impressed anyway. They used local white stone, red stone, black stone, creating patterns in the walls. Decorative, artistic, and they covered certain elements in metals, bronze for door frames, silver for decorative panels, gold for sacred spaces. Not excessive, not gaudy, just beautiful. But the most important building was the temple of Poseidon. Atlas knew this had to be perfect. This was for his father, the god who made all of this possible. They chose the highest point of the central island, where the original mountain peak had been, and they built. The temple was enormous, 600 feet long, 300 feet wide, proportionally tall. They covered the exterior in silver, so it gleamed in the sunlight, visible from anywhere in the city. A beacon, a reminder. The roof was made of ivory, carved with images of waves, sea creatures, ships. The doors were bronze, massive. It took 10 men to open them. And inside was another world. The walls were covered in gold, not plated, not painted, solid sheets of hammered gold, reflecting the light from windows high above. The ceiling had gold coffers, geometric patterns that drew the eye upward. The floor was polished black stone, smooth as glass, reflecting everything. So when you walked in, you saw gold above, gold on the walls, gold reflected below, surrounded by divinity. Massive pillars held up the roof, made of red stone streaked with black, carved with scenes from the founding. Poseidon rising from the sea, Clydo on her mountain, the 10 suns, the building of the city, history made permanent. And at the far end of the temple, the statue, Poseidon himself, standing in a chariot, pulled by 6 winged horses, their wings spread, mid-flight, as if pulling the god through the sky. The statue was so tall, Poseidon's head nearly touched the ceiling, covered in gold, eyes made of sapphires, his trident raised. Around the chariot, 100 nereids, the daughters of the sea, riding dolphins, each one unique, individual, beautiful, all in gold. This wasn't just art. This was worship made visible. In front of the statue, a pillar made of orichalcum, that mysterious metal Plato describes. Reddish, gleaming, precious, We don't know what it really was. Some think it was a copper-gold alloy. Others believe it was something else entirely, a metal that no longer exists, lost with Atlantis. But on this pillar, Poseidon's laws were inscribed, how the kings should rule, how they should treat each other, how they should judge, the foundation of everything. Atlas instituted a ritual, every 5 years, then every 6 years, alternating, honoring both even and odd numbers. The 10 kings would gather, not just Atlas and his brothers anymore, eventually their sons, grandsons, descendants, but always 10 kings, always the rulers of the 10 kingdoms. They would come to the temple, and they would hunt. Sacred bulls roamed freely in the temple grounds. White, perfect, untouched, the kings would enter, armed only with wooden staves and ropes. No weapons, no metal. They had to work together, herding, cornering, capturing, until finally one bull was caught. They would bring it to the pillar, sacrifice it there. Its blood would flow over the inscribed laws, consecrating them again. Then they would mix the blood with wine in a golden bowl. Each king would drink, tasting the covenant, renewing their oath, to uphold the laws, to judge fairly, to protect their people, to never raise arms against each other. Then they would judge any disputes between the kingdoms, any violations of the laws, any decisions that affected all of them. They would wait until darkness, extinguish all lights except the sacred fire, and in that darkness, sitting in a circle, they would speak truth, render justice, maintain balance. This ritual continued for generations, and for a long time, it worked. The kings remembered. They honored the covenant. They ruled wisely, and Atlantis flourished. Let me tell you what it was like to live in Atlantis during the Golden Age, before the fall, when everything was still perfect. This ritual continued for generations, and for a long time, it worked. The kings remembered. They honored the covenant. They ruled wisely, and Atlantis flourished. Let me tell you what it was like to live in Atlantis during the Golden Age, before the fall, when everything was still perfect. Imagine you're a merchant. You live in the outer ring, a modest house, 2 stories, white stone, a small courtyard where your children play. You wake before dawn. The air is cool, salty. You can hear the sea beyond the outer walls. Constant, rhythmic, peaceful. You walk through quiet streets toward the market. The buildings are starting to catch the first light. Everything is clean, well maintained. No garbage in the streets. No decay. There are public fountains every few blocks. Free water for everyone. Some people are already filling jugs, nodding good morning. The market is in the outer ring, near one of the great tunnels. You can see ships coming through from the outer ocean into the protected harbors. They bring goods from everywhere. Egypt, the Mediterranean, strange lands to the west, spices, fabrics, metals, stories. Your stall is small but prosperous. You trade in olive oil and wine from the plain beyond the city. That massive rectangular plain Atlas organized, divided into 60,000 sections, each one producing something. The land is so fertile, 2 harvests a year, one from rainfall, one from irrigation. Those canals the engineers built, bringing mountain water to every field. Other merchants arrive, setting up their stalls, calling out greetings. There's Nilos, who sells pottery, beautiful red and black ware, decorated with scenes of the gods, and Thera, who imports fabric, silk from distant lands, colors you can't get locally, and Callias, who sells fish, fresh from the morning catch, still gleaming, still perfect. The market fills with people, workers heading to the workshops, nobles from the inner rings, carried in litters, soldiers in bronze armor, patrolling, children running between stalls, everyone speaking at once, haggling, laughing, living. This is Atlantis, not the temples, not the palace. This, the daily life, the ordinary miracle of a functioning city. At midday, you take a break. Walk to one of the public baths. They're free, available to everyone, fed by natural hot springs. The Atlanteans understood engineering. Aqueducts bringing water from the mountains. Heated pools and cold pools. Places to relax, to talk, to be human. You sink into the hot water. Let the morning's tension dissolve. Around you, others do the same. A farmer with soil still under his nails. A scribe with ink-stained fingers. A soldier with scars on his shoulders. All equal here. All Atlantean. Someone starts talking about the games. There's an athletic competition next week in the great stadium on the inner ring. Racing, wrestling, boxing. The best athletes from all 10 kingdoms. Competing for glory, for the honor of their king. It's exciting. Everyone will go. Even Atlas attends. Sitting with his people, not above them. Among them, you finish your bath. Walk back to the market. The afternoon crowd is different. More leisure, less urgency. People browsing, talking, enjoying the day. The weather is perfect. It usually is. The mountains shelter the plain from harsh winds. The sea keeps temperatures moderate. Atlantis is blessed in every sense. As the sun starts to set, you pack up your stall. Count your earnings. A good day. Like most days, you walk home. The city is beautiful in this light. The walls of the inner rings gleaming. The temple silver catching the last rays. Everything golden and peaceful. Your children run to meet you. Your wife has prepared dinner. Fish, bread, vegetables, wine. Simple, perfect. You eat together in the courtyard, talking about the day, making plans for tomorrow. This is happiness, not dramatic, not exciting, just good. After dinner, you walk to the plaza, a public space where people gather. Someone is playing music, a lyre, a flute, voices joining. Others are talking, debating, philosophy, politics, stories. This is what makes Atlantis great. Not the gold, not the power. This, community, culture, peace. Now imagine you're a soldier. Your life is different. You live in barracks near the walls. Training grounds, armories, order. You wake to trumpets. Dress in your uniform. Bronze breastplate, greaves, helmet, the crest dyed red, marking you as Atlantean. You train every morning. Formation drills, weapons practice, spear, sword, shield. The instructors are veterans. Some fought in the old wars, before peace. When the 10 kingdoms were still unifying, they teach you discipline, precision, unity. An Atlantean soldier is the best in the world. Not because of rage, because of training. Now imagine you're a soldier. Your life is different. You live in barracks near the walls. Training grounds, armories, order. You wake to trumpets. Dress in your uniform. Bronze breastplate, greaves, helmet, the crest dyed red, marking you as Atlantean. You train every morning. Formation drills, weapons practice, spear, sword, shield. The instructors are veterans. Some fought in the old wars, before peace. When the 10 kingdoms were still unifying, they teach you discipline, precision, unity. An Atlantean soldier is the best in the world, not because of rage, because of training. But mostly you patrol, walk the walls, check the gates, make sure everything is secure. There's no real threat. No one attacks Atlantis. No one would dare. The city is too strong, too well defended, protected by the rings, by the sea, by reputation. Your job is more symbolic than necessary. A reminder that order exists, that someone is watching. Sometimes you're assigned to the palace. Guard duty at the royal residence. Standing at attention while kings meet, listening to discussions of policy, trade agreements, engineering projects, festivals. It's boring mostly, but you're proud. You're protecting the heart of civilization. Other times, you're assigned to escort duty, accompanying a noble to the outer kingdoms. You travel across the Great Plain, past endless fields, through small towns, to one of the other capitals. Each kingdom has its own city, smaller than Atlantis, less grand, but still impressive. Stone buildings, organized streets, culture. You meet soldiers from other kingdoms, train with them, drink with them, share stories. They're different. Each kingdom has its own character. Caderos' people are rougher, forest folk. Amphir's people are proud, mountain people. Mester's people are wealthy, gold from their mines. But you're all Atlantean. That matters more than the differences. Sometimes, rarely, you participate in the games, the military competitions, your unit against others, formation drills, mock battles, displays of skill, thousands watching from the stands, cheering, judging. If you win, glory for your kingdom. If you lose, shame. But either way, respect, because you tried, you served, you embodied the Atlantean ideal. Now imagine you're a priest. Your life is devoted to the divine. You live near the temple. Small quarters. Simple. You don't need much. Your wealth is spiritual. You wake before anyone else. Walk to the temple in darkness. Climb the steps alone. The great bronze doors are closed. You have the key. Inside, silence. The gold walls dimly visible in pre-dawn light. The statue of Poseidon towering above. You light the sacred fire. Offer incense. Speak the morning prayers. Ancient words in the old language, asking for the God's blessing, protection for the city, wisdom for the kings, prosperity for the people. Other priests arrive. Together, you perform the rituals, libations, offerings, hymns, everything done precisely, the way it's always been done, the way Poseidon ordained. Later, citizens come, seeking blessings, offering prayers, a merchant before a journey, a woman hoping for a child, a farmer giving thanks for harvest. You listen, you counsel, you bless. This is your purpose, maintaining the connection between mortal and divine. You study the ancient texts, records going back to the founding, stories of Poseidon and Cleito, the birth of the 10 sons, the building of the city. You memorize these stories because they're not just history, they're identity. They're what makes Atlantis Atlantis. Every 5 or 6 years, you prepare for the gathering, the 10 kings coming to the temple, the bull hunt, the sacrifice, the covenant. This is the most important ritual, the one that holds everything together. You clean the temple, ensure the sacred bulls are healthy, prepare the golden bowl, the wine, the fire. When the kings arrive, you step back. This ritual is theirs. But you watch, you witness, you remember, because someone has to. Someone has to maintain the memory. And for generations, you do. The priests keep the records, maintain the rituals, preserve a connection to Poseidon. As long as this continues, Atlantis is safe, protected, blessed. But nothing lasts forever. The change was gradual, so slow you might not notice. Generation after generation. The divine blood thinning. Atlas had children, half demigod, quarter divine. They had children, 1/8 divine, and so on. With each generation, a little less of Poseidon, a little more mortal. The kings still lived longer than ordinary people, but not as long as Atlas. They were still stronger, but not as strong. They still had presence, but less of it. And with the fading of divine blood, came the fading of divine wisdom. Atlas understood sacrifice. He understood service. He ruled for his people, not for himself. His children tried to do the same. Most succeeded, but some began to think differently. There was a king, maybe the 5th generation after Atlas. His name was Mester III, named after his ancestor. He ruled the kingdom of gold mines, and he loved gold more than was healthy, more than was wise. He began hoarding it, keeping more than his fair share. When the other kingdoms needed gold for projects, for the aqueducts, for the temples, for trade, Mester III demanded higher prices. This was new. This was wrong. The kingdoms were supposed to cooperate, help each other. But Mester saw opportunity, saw advantage, and took it. The other kings met at the temple, called him to account, reminded him of the laws, the covenant inscribed on the pillar. Mester III apologized, adjusted his prices, promised to do better. And for a while, he did, but the seed was planted. The idea that individual gain mattered more than collective good. Other kings noticed. If Mester could seek advantage, why couldn't they? Slowly, subtly, the cooperation eroded. Kingdoms started competing, not openly, not violently, but economically, politically, each trying to position themselves better. The gatherings at the temple continued, the bull hunts, the sacrifices, the oaths, but they became performative. The words were the same, but the meaning faded. They drank the blood and wine. They swore the oaths, but in their hearts, they were already breaking them. It took centuries. This wasn't overnight. But slowly, Atlantis changed. The capital grew larger, more ostentatious. The palace expanded. More gold, more silver, more orichalcum. The temple was renovated, made even grander. But was it devotion or vanity? The games became more violent. Boxing became bloodier. Wrestling became brutal. The crowds cheered for injury, for dominance, for cruelty. The athletic ideal corrupted into gladiatorial spectacle. The markets became more cutthroat. Merchants undercutting each other, seeking monopolies. The sense of community replaced by competition. The military changed too. Once, soldiers were defenders. Now, they became conquerors. The kings looked beyond Atlantis, at the lands across the sea, weaker lands, vulnerable lands, and they began to ask, why not? There was a council, the 10 kings, maybe the 20th generation now, gathering not at the temple, but at the palace. Already a bad sign. They discussed expansion, not trade, not diplomacy, conquest. Some kings objected. This wasn't the Atlantean way. Poseidon's laws forbade aggression. The covenant required peace. But others argued. The laws were for internal relations between the 10 kingdoms. Nothing in them forbade external conquest. A technicality, a loophole, a corruption of intent. They put to a vote. It should have been unanimous. All 10 kings agreeing. That was the old way. But these weren't the old kings. 7 voted yes. 3 voted no. And the majority won. They began building a fleet. Not merchant ships. Warships. Triremes with bronze rams. Decks reinforced for soldiers. Hundreds of them. Built in secret in the outer harbors. They trained soldiers. Not for defense. For invasion. New tactics. New weapons. The old instructors objected. This isn't what we taught you. But they were overruled or replaced. And then they sailed. 10,000 soldiers. 500 ships. Leaving from the harbors of Atlantis. Heading east. Toward the Pillars of Hercules. Toward the Mediterranean. Toward conquest. First, they took the coastal cities of Libya. Small settlements. Unprepared. The Atlantean forces were overwhelming. Superior training. Superior equipment. They won easily. Incorporated the cities into their empire. Then Egypt, the Nile Delta, the ports. Harder fighting here. Egypt had armies, traditions, but still, Atlantis prevailed. More land, more resources, more power. When the Atlantean fleet arrived, Athens prepared, not with superior weapons, not with magic or divine intervention, just with courage and the determination to remain free. The battles were fierce. The Atlanteans expected easy victory. They'd conquered everyone else. Why should Athens be different? But the Athenians fought with everything they had. Every man, every strategy, every advantage of terrain. And slowly, impossibly, they pushed back. Not because they were stronger, because they were willing to sacrifice more. They had something to fight for. Their freedom, their city, their way of life. What did the Atlanteans have? Pride, greed, empire, not the same. The war dragged on. Months, years. The Atlantean supply line stretched thin. The conquered territories became restless. Rebellions broke out. The empire that seemed so strong began to fracture. Back in Atlantis, the kings met, not at the temple. They hadn't been to the temple in years. The rituals abandoned, the oaths forgotten. They met at the palace, and they argued. Some wanted to send more troops, crush Athens, crush the rebellions. Others wanted to withdraw, consolidate, hold what they had. A very few, wanted to give it all up, return to what they were. But they were shouted down. The first earthquake hit at dawn. Small, barely noticeable. A few items falling from shelves. People pausing, looking around, then continuing their day. The second came an hour later. Stronger, buildings swaying. Some older structures cracking. People leaving their homes, standing in the streets. Nervous, uncertain. The third came at midday. Violent, the ground rolling like waves. Buildings collapsing, walls falling, people screaming, running, no safe place. And then, a moment of calm. The shaking stopped, an eerie silence. The survivors gathering, trying to help the wounded, trying to understand. Someone pointed to the sea. The water was pulling back, receding from the shores, exposing the seafloor. Fish flopping, boats grounded. Strange, ominous. Those who remembered old stories knew what was coming. They started running. Inland, upward, away from the sea. But most didn't understand. They stood watching, curious, confused. Then they saw it, a wall of water, higher than the city walls, higher than the buildings, moving fast, impossibly fast. It hit the outer ring first, swept over the brass wall, crushed buildings, drowned thousands, the water rushing inward. The bridges collapsed, the tunnels flooded, the water filling the rings, rising, rising. On the inner rings, people climbed, onto roofs, upstairs, higher, always higher. But the water kept coming. The palace, the kings gathered there, watching from the high windows, seeing their city drown, helpless, terrified. Some fell to their knees, praying to Poseidon, "We are your descendants. Save us, please." But the sea god did not answer. His silence was the answer. The temple still stood, on the highest point of the central island, the silver exterior gleaming, water lapping at its base, rising slowly. Inside, the priests, the few who remained, standing before the statue. The golden Poseidon with his trident raised, the Nereids on their dolphins. Everything still beautiful, still perfect, even as the world ended. They sang the old hymns, voices echoing in the golden chamber, the water seeping through the bronze doors. Cold, relentless, but they kept singing until the water reached their knees. Their waists, their chests, the sacred fire went out, the one that had burned since the founding. Generations of flame, extinguished. In an instant, the last priest held onto the pillar of orichalcum, the one with Poseidon's laws, the covenant, the foundation of everything. He read the words, one final time, as the water covered them. And then the ground shifted again, not just shaking, sinking, the entire island pulled down by weight, by water, by divine judgment. The palace collapsed. The walls crumbled. The buildings folded. Everything that had taken centuries to build, destroyed in moments. The water rushed in to fill the void. A whirlpool, a maelstrom, pulling everything down. Ships, buildings, bodies, all of it sucked into the deep. From a distance, from ships far out to sea, sailors watched, saw the city disappear, saw the water rise, saw nothing, just ocean, where an island had been. Let's look at what we know. Plato claimed it was real. He insisted these were historical events, passed down through reliable sources. He even gives specific details, measurements, locations, descriptions, things that feel too precise to be fiction. But he was also a philosopher, a teacher, someone who used stories to make points. The allegory of the cave, the ring of Gyges, these weren't literally true. They were thought experiments. Could Atlantis be the same? Most scholars think so. They see it as Plato's critique of Athens, a warning about imperialism, about losing your values, about divine punishment for hubris, all themes relevant to his time. Athens had just lost the Peloponnesian War. The Golden Age was over. Maybe Atlantis was Athens, a mirror, a warning, a lesson, but some believe differently. Because here's the thing, flood myths exist everywhere. Every culture has them. The Mesopotamian flood, Noah's Ark, Hindu Puranas, Native American legends, Australian Aboriginal stories. All of them speak of a great flood, a world-destroying deluge, sometimes sent by gods, sometimes just happening, but always catastrophic, always world-changing. What if these aren't separate myths? What if they're all memories? Distorted, mythologized, changed, but based on something real. At the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, the glaciers melted. Sea levels rose dramatically. Some estimates say 400 feet. Coastal settlements drowned, entire landscapes submerged. Islands disappeared. Plains became ocean. The people who survived moved inland, started over, but they remembered. They told their children. And those children told theirs. Over thousands of years, the memories became stories. The stories became myths. And the myths became Atlantis. So where was it really? If it existed, where should we look? The most popular theory, Santorini, the Greek island in the Aegean Sea, once called Thera, home to the Minoan civilization. Around 1600 BC, the volcano erupted, one of the largest eruptions in recorded history. The island literally exploded, collapsing into the sea, creating massive tsunamis, destroying the Minoan cities. There's one last part of the story that few know. It's a detail that Plato didn't include, but that appears in some of the later legends. They say that Poseidon, upon seeing the destruction of his beloved city, made an oath. He swore that one day, when humanity had learned its lessons, when it could handle power with wisdom, he would bring Atlantis back. The waters would recede. The island would rise from the depths, and Atlantis would live again, not as a conquering empire, but as a beacon of wisdom for all humanity. It's a beautiful story. It's probably not true, but there's something appealing about it. The idea that our mistakes don't have to be permanent, that we can learn, grow, change, that redemption is always possible, even for those who have fallen the lowest. Maybe that's what we need to hear, especially now, in a world where we build higher than ever, where our technology gives us power the ancients only dreamed of, where our actions can shape the climate and the future of the entire planet. We're in our own Atlantis moment, teetering on the edge of our own arrogance. The question is, will we learn from history or will we repeat it? I'll tell you a secret. The true lesson of Atlantis isn't about power or wealth or technology. It's about connection. The first Atlanteans prospered not because they had orichalcum or advanced ships. They prospered because they had community. They gathered in the temple of Poseidon not to display their power, but to hold each other accountable. They renewed their oaths not through empty ritual, but because they believed in something greater than themselves. When they lost that, when they stopped seeing themselves as part of something greater and started seeing themselves as gods themselves, that's when the decline began. And it's the same lesson today. It doesn't matter how many wonders we build, how many frontiers we push, how far we reach. If we lose our connection with each other, with the earth, with something transcendent, we're building on sand or on water. Take a deep breath. Feel your body sink deeper into the place where you're lying. Let the tension flow from your muscles. Let your thoughts slow down. You've heard the story of Atlantis, a city that rose so high it touched the gods, and that fell so low it disappeared beneath the waves. But you're still here. Tomorrow, the sun will rise. The waves will roll. The world will keep turning. And you'll have a choice to build with wisdom or to build with pride, to connect or to conquer, to learn or to repeat. Atlantis is lost, but its story remains. And in the words of that story is a truth that transcends time and place. We are all builders. We all create something, whether a legacy, a family, a work of art, a life. And the question isn't how grand we can build, but how deeply we can connect with ourselves, with others, with something greater. Because in the end, when the waves come, and they always come, it's not gold that saves us. It's not power. It's not walls of bronze. It's the wisdom to know when to bow. It's the humility to recognize our limits. It's the courage to value justice over victory. That's what Atlantis lost. That's what we can choose to keep. There's an image I want to leave with you as you drift asleep. Imagine yourself standing on the beach at sunrise. The sea is calm. The waves gently lap the sand. And there in the depths, invisible but present, is Atlantis. Not the ruins, not the destruction, but the idea, the possibility, the potential, all the dreams of greatness humanity has ever had, all the civilizations we've ever tried to build, all the mistakes we've ever made, and all the lessons we've learned. Everything is there, beneath the waves, waiting for us to do better. And maybe, just maybe, if we learn, if we choose wisdom over power, connection over conquest, humility over arrogance, then Atlantis will rise again. Not as a place, but as a state of being. Not as a city in the ocean, but as a city in our hearts. A civilization not of stone and metal, but of values and truths. That's the Atlantis worth seeking. Not out there at the bottom of the sea, but in here, in every choice we make, in every moment of wisdom over ego, in every act of kindness over cruelty. That's the Atlantis we can build. And that's the Atlantis that will never sink. Close your eyes now. Let the story dissolve into your mind. Let the images merge with your dreams. Atlantis is calling you not to search for it, but to become it, to embody the best of what it promised and avoid the worst of what it became. You are the builder now. You are the king, the queen, the citizen, the dreamer. What will you create? What legacy will you leave? When future generations tell your story, will it be a cautionary tale or a beacon of hope? The choice is yours, just as it was for the Atlanteans, and just as it was for Poseidon when he first shaped that island from the sea, with love and hope and dreams of something beautiful, something that could last, something worth remembering. Sleep now. Let the waves of Atlantis lull you. Let the wisdom of the ancients whisper in your dreams. And when you wake, remember, you carry Atlantis within you, not the lost one, but the one that can still be found, the one that's waiting to be born, the one that begins with a single choice, a single act, a single moment of wisdom over pride. That's your Atlantis, and that one will never sink. Good night.